All right, Voch, run this for the cardio, as you'd like to say.
Indubitably. Indubitably. All right, here we go. Y'all ready back there? Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Here we go. Here we go. And we are back. And I'm snug as a bug in a rug. Tapped in with the warmth. It's freezing outside. I hope y'all doing all right. I hope y'all hanging in there. You know what I mean? We have a remote episode of the Doin Alright Draft Edition. And this is how we used to do it. We used to do it back at the crib, but you know what I'm saying? We got a little something special. We got it tapped in because we got two maniacs working in the studio there. Bryan Broaddus is in the studio, ladies and gentlemen.
How you doing there, boss? Good to see you, man.
Hey, you got Voch on the Monko.
I haven't heard that in so long. I missed that, man. I missed that. It's so nice to hear that again.
Man, Bryan, let me break out the, you know what I'm saying? Let me get. We still got a little work for y'all, man, because we work hard over here to Doing All Right. But hey, this is still just kind of troubleshooting a little bit, you know what I mean? So moving forward, when I'm sitting back in my seat that Bryan's sitting in now, he go back to his seat, which is over there. Once we get back to that, and we'll have plenty guests on this screen situation that I'm working on now. We're gonna do this remote. Y'all see this 100K with the
congratulations, sir. Congratulations on that, man. Super proud of you for that work.
Bryan, we gonna have a couple of them for Crown Global.
I hope so.
You know what I mean?
I hope so.
Don't even worry about it. Bryan, we got some topics that we want to run by the people today. It's a lovely Tuesday for us. Things have been happening in Cowboy land. And then Daniel Jeremiah, your good buddy Daniel Jeremiah, just went and pissed me off, Bryan. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit later. But there has been some movement in Cowboy land. So first and foremost, Christian Parker is the new defensive coordinator, and he's handed out some walking papers, Bryan Broaddus.
Yes.
Did you kind of think that was going to be a thing? Did you think that, well, if Christian Parker is going to be like a new he's a new DC with not a lot of experience, would the Joneses try to hire dudes for him maybe to kind of help him through this process, Bryan? But would you assume that they would have just let him pick all the guys he want and they just going to run it how it is, Bryan?
No, I tell you what, man, I'm impressed with what Christian Parker has been able to do coming in, hit the ground running, kind of has an idea of maybe the direction that he wants to go. Has some guys in mind. You know, we got to figure out, though, we're always kind of leery of hiring the friend. You know, we're always saying, be careful hiring the friend. Well, Christian Parker has got an idea of guys he wants. He's got specifically some teams he's targeting for some of these positions he has. I'm not surprised that Jerry and Steven have let him hire the coaches. And Schottenheimer, I think that, after that whole press conference up there, and I do believe this with my heart, that when Jerry Jones pointed the finger at Brian Schottenheimer and told him, hey, Schotty was on board with this, I think that's when Brian Schottenheimer said, fine, if I'm on board with this, then I'm about to show you what on board's being all about here. And I think that the way they went through the interview process, we kind of thought that they would maybe wait for Jim Leonhard, and it didn't happen that way. You could have talked to him, after the game, on Sunday, and then maybe made a decision from there. But they didn't. They moved on. They got Christian Parker done, and so good for them for doing that. I applaud them for the process they've gone through, and I really applaud them right now for how they're going about trying to hire some of these position coaches. And Voch, I think you're going to ask me about Marcus Dixon as a defensive line coach. But first, though, I want to ask you a question, because it seems like it's kind of breaking news, and I could tie this thing into Marcus Dixon after I ask you this question, if it's okay. Last night, I was talking with some people in the organization. We got word that Aaron Whitecotton is likely going to move on and go work with the Tennessee Titans. So it appears that the Cowboys are preparing for that to happen. With Robert Saleh getting the job, going back and finding Aaron Whitecotton. Aaron Whitecotton kind of maybe reading a little bit of the tea leaves that, hey, they're interviewing guys for my position. Do I need to think about other opportunities? But I want to ask you this. In fact, if this is the end of Aaron Whitecotton, your thoughts on that?
Man, Bryan, I'm not going to lie to you. We kind of talked about this here and there throughout the whole process there, and Aaron Whitecotton just kind of got bushed in with the rest of them. We didn't see growth from anybody. We didn't see anybody get better. It's And it's not that we're looking at, oh, well, Quentin Williams is doing great things. That belongs to Aaron Whitecotton or, Kenny Clark or anything like that, or even Osa, right? All those guys eventually play a little worse than what we thought they were going to end up, right? But it's like Donovan Ezeraku, right? The guy that we thought was going to come in and like tear it up in pass rush world. He didn't quite tear it up in pass rush world, or like guys like, Peyton Turner. Where did those guys get better? That's how I judge you.
Right.
I don't judge my wide receivers coach on how good CeeDee Lamb is. I'm judging them by flow and his growth, and some of these other guys, Jalen Cropper and their growth, Brian. And I didn't see a whole bunch of D-line growth. I saw dudes that wasn't on the team show up and make this thing better from being outside. Like Clowney just shows up
right
without a whole bunch of Whitecotton coaching, and Clowney's one of your best guys. Clowney is your best guy. Quentin Williams just pops up and he is your best guy. Clark, the same thing there, Brian. So, man, it was weird, Brian. It was weird. We at camp, we like, hey, man, why aren't our great guys being great? Why are we looking at Perrion Winfrey and Solomon Thomas so much? Why are they the guys? I kind of want my coach to make my good guys great and my decent dudes solid. You know what I mean? So Whitecotton leaving, fine. Shouts out to you. You know what I mean? I think if he was worth keeping, I think the Joneses would have probably stepped up with a little bit of money in the bag and say, hey, we need to keep Whitecotton because we think that Whitecotton is next up. But I don't think that they think that, and I don't need them.
Yeah, the fact that he did interview for the defensive coordinator job, maybe they thought a little bit different. Maybe they were giving him an opportunity to kind of like, let's see what his thoughts are about this. I totally agree with you on this. I never saw this defensive line get better. I was looking for, and yeah, maybe the talent level isn't what we all thought it was. Maybe going into camp, I think that they got a little fooled by their own evaluations with their defensive line. I think that with some of these offensive tackles didn't do a good enough job. They maybe had a sense of security that all of a sudden, oh wait, we've got pass rushers. Well, in actuality though, they didn't have the type of pass rush. Yes, they had some pressures and things like that, but they didn't have anybody that had the ability to finish. And I for as much that was made about Aaron Whitecotton and a hire, it did not pan out. You talk about one that like the hype that went into this, that like, wow, hey, they got this guy. He made Quentin Williams great. He made this, he's Solomon Thomas. He did this and that and the other. Oh, they were a top 10 defense and all that. Yeah, great. But we didn't see that kind of play here. And maybe it has to do with the players that they have. But boy, like you said, I want to believe that a coach can come in here and make a difference. And I don't think that was the case. There was a lot of talk about this guy and his ability, this, that, and the other. I think there was a lot of it that just wasn't delivered. And if Aaron Whitecotton's moving on and the Cowboys are looking at adding a guy like a Marcus Dixon, who I have a little bit of a scouting report on from some people that I know that have coached with him, and it's, to me, he sounds positive in what he can do. Now, there's a couple things I'm going to tell you about the Marcus Dixon. They feel like that Marcus Dixon, really a very smart guy, a guy that has a really good understanding about how to keep his room the right way. Where there's some thoughts about him is there might be a better coach when it comes to, I say it's better. I mean, he is a really good coacher he's a really good coach in the run defense. Maybe there's some things in the pass rush that they're going to have to kind of work with there, but we'll see. Maybe they get another coach. Maybe we have two coaches. We've seen this in the past where you've had guys that have kind of helped out, like a Greg Ellis has helped out with some pass rush stuff. So I'm interested to see with Marcus Dixon, in fact, that he is a guy, but the overall positivity about him is good, but there might be some concerns about his ability to teach pass rush as opposed to run defense. We'll kind of see if he gets the opportunity. We'll see if that's the case. That's something that was maybe a little concerning to me.
Brian, I got two questions as you were just kind of talking through this thing. Are there any players? I've kind of mentioned this before, but I'm going to keep like bringing it up, but in different contexts or whatever, right? Are there any players from last year's D-line? Whitecotton gone.
Yeah.
Are there any players from last year's D-line that you would consider bringing back because maybe there's something in your mind going, I know this dude's a good player? I know this dude's a good player. This situation's not working. Is Fowler a guy like that for you?
Yeah.
Is Sam a guy like that for you, Brian?
You know, the thing with it's funny you say it that way, and man, it does make you think. You know, how does Fowler go? And then there's people that will tell you that Fowler can't put together back-to-back years. He can't have like 10 sacks one year and then the next year he gets 2, and then he has 10 sacks. You know, I think that the lot has been cast for a guy like Sam Williams. You know, I kind of feel like I just overall feel like that they kind of need to move on from some of these guys. I do. And then, and maybe, we'll see what happens as you and I dive into this draft and, where the edge rushers fall. And listen, tell me what the scheme is. Is this really is this going to be like a 5-man front? How are we playing this scheme? How are we rushing the passer? That depends on, adding guys like that. I mean, I know you. Listen. Yeah, we're going to get into this mock draft, and I guarantee you're going to tell me, like, listen, this Daniel Jeremiah draft, and as you get wiped out in it, there might be a thought about going out and getting somebody, making a trade here, and going out and getting. I mean, and now is this a Maxx Crosby situation or something like that? I know you asked me about guys you want to potentially bring back. Sure. I think I'm more in the line, Voch, about maybe going out and getting help that way, whether it's through free agency or whether it's through the draft.
Brian, Jordan Schultz reported yesterday. I just want your thoughts on this. Jordan Schultz reported the Cowboys requested an interview with Pittsburgh Steelers outside linebackers coach Denzel Martin. All right, cool, bet. We ain't got to know Denzel Martin right now.
Right.
But they're looking for an outside linebackers coach.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So earlier when you mentioned the Cowboys have to get better at pass rush.
Pass rush, right.
Do you think that a nuanced coaching hire like that is what that's for? Like we know that with the new move, and just to be clear, 3-4 defense, 4-3, the same thing, kind of sort of. It's just where you line guys up and what they do. But there's probably going to be more standing rushers in this defense than it was last year's defense, Brian. Do you think with just that small change that we're going to be looking forward to that through this linebackers coach? Like, not just a linebackers coach, but an outside linebackers coach.
An outside linebacker coach. And I think that's something, too, that you have to kind of get on as a thought. And I think it's really well brought up by you right there, because, we talk about with the coach from the Vikings potentially being a much better run coach than a pass rushing coach. Maybe you get a guy that all of a sudden you have a little bit more balance there. Maybe it's like, okay, we've got a guy that kind of helps us with the inside, maybe with those defensive tackles. And then you got a situation where, okay, we've got a guy that can kind of handle pass rush. We understand with Pittsburgh, you watch the way that Pittsburgh gets after quarterbacks and stuff like that. That is an impressive way of playing things. So yes, this could be that Parker has a plan of how he wants to have his defensive line coaches work. Not just one guy that coaches both spots, but maybe, okay, we've got kind of a tackles coach and we got an edge coach, but also the edges are really outside linebackers. So it's really a very good observation on your part that way the staff might be shaped.
I'm just hearing names that I haven't heard before, like outside linebackers coach.
Yeah,
I even heard nickel corner coach earlier. Just listening to all the Cowboy people kind of talk about it. It could have been on the radio, could have been a podcast, or something. But I heard the term nickel corners coach. So maybe it's a good thing that they're trying to find nuance and trying to like break it all up into smaller categories or whatever, because Cowboys need the help, Brian.
I'll tell you what, though, Voch, I remember a time when I first started the league, and this sounds so back in the day. I think the Dallas Cowboys had 12 coaches when they won the Super Bowl. I think they had 12 coaches on staff, and now you have 12 different assistants to the assistants to the assistants. Everybody's got in these specialized roles, and I think the NFL, the games have become kind of a specialized game. When you start to talk about the sub packages, whether it's the nickel, the dime, those kinds of things, or if it's, if it has to do with offense, the run game coordinator, the guy who's the passing game coordinator, even on defense now, we've got coaches that are responsible for the passing game coordinator. And you kind of think, like, what kind of crazy title is that? Well, there's somebody actually that's thinking about, okay, when teams are throwing the ball against us, this is how we're going to play defense. So it's amazing how the staffs have expanded. And I think this is some of the problems that Jerry Jones has. When we talk about, paying coaches, he's already thinking, man, I'm paying 30 coaches as is. Why am I paying 30 coaches? Why do I need all these coaches? But if you look at most staffs around the National Football League, they are massive in the way that they are, maybe the exception of the Cincinnati Bengals. But everybody else has got an assistant to the assistant, and that's just kind of the way I think this game is. It's becoming a very specialized game, especially with the players too. We've talked about guys that in this draft already that kind of have certain types of things that the elements to their game. When you look at, for example, like Scott from Miami. Here's a guy that plays in the slot. Is he a safety? Does he always cover? Oh, wait, he's a blitzer. Wait, he can play linebacker. That's kind of what this game has honestly become.
Yeah. Your good friend Daniel Jeremiah bothered the piss out of me, Brian. I was mad as hell. I was upset.
Yeah.
I was confused.
Yeah.
I eventually chilled out a little bit because at the end of the day, this is only an exercise, Brian.
Uh-huh.
But what his mock draft did do is kind of light a bit of a fire under the people that just assume that Arvell Reese is going to be just sitting there at 12 for you, or just one of the best players in the draft will be sitting there at 12 for you.
Uh-huh.
Daniel Jeremiah put us in a little tizzy, Brian. I got to pull it up on my side. I'm sure you're looking at it now over on yours.
I'm pulling mine up here. I was going to walk you through this thing because I'm always interested in what you think about these mock drafts. And I think, and you mentioned Daniel Jeremiah, and hopefully we'll have Daniel Jeremiah on with us. He is one of the absolute best, a former NFL scout with the Eagles, with the Ravens. So he has a really good understanding about this. He does a great job. He'll be on the Senior Bowl coverage with the NFL Network. But yeah, he is a friend, and hopefully we'll get him on to talk about this stuff too. But I want to walk you through this because I think that you used the word pissed off. And I think that there are a lot of Cowboy fans that are probably looking at this draft and they're saying, well, wait a minute now. All those guys that we've been kind of conditioning ourselves to be accustomed to are not there. I think Daniel Jeremiah might be onto something. He did it by not taking receivers early is what he did. And he kind of puts you in a situation to where when you get on the board at 12, is your best player a wide receiver or is it a corner? So let me walk you through this if I could, Voch, and you tell me.
Yes, sir.
Fernando Mendoza, the Raiders with the first pick, the quarterback from Indiana. That seems to be the consensus there. Arvell Reese has now been, this is 2-3 different times I've seen some mock drafts where Arvell Reese, the very talented edge linebacker from the New York Jets. I find it interesting that Daniel Jeremiah listed Arvell Reese as an edge and not as a linebacker. So in his designation, it sounds like to me he's looking at Arvell Reese as an edge and not a linebacker. Spencer Fano, the tackle from Utah, goes to Arizona. Tennessee takes Francis Mauigoa from Miami. No surprise. I mean, it could go either way, I think. Maybe the next time he'll have the Miami tackle over the Utah tackle. It just seems like that Arizona seems to be a team that's all of a sudden now getting it's every week it's tackle. They'll probably surprise us and not take one of these guys. But Tennessee takes Mauigoa from Miami. This is where it kind of flips. And this is where he gets really interesting because we've all thought that maybe the Giants would be looking for skill. And they're looking for skill at looking at wide receiver. We see the Giants a couple times a year. You and I have done shows. We've talked about this is who you need to worry about. The Giants don't have this. They don't have that. Well, here's where Daniel Jeremiah throws a little bit of a wrench into it. Mansour Delane, the LSU cornerback. And by the way, the Giants are fans of LSU football. It seems like every year they're drafting somebody from LSU to be a part of their program and using high picks on them. But talk to me about Delane going to the Giants at 5. Daniel says that the Giants could add a receiver later in the draft. It's deep class at that position, but Delane would immediately be their most talented cornerback.
This was the first shocker to me, Brian, because honestly, I thought that maybe the 2 pass rushers go before Delane, and maybe you'll get lucky if the linebacker Styles. Like if the league loves Styles, then maybe Delane can kind of fall to you. I think the 11th and 12th player on like a lot of these boards, for the most part, when it kind of plays out, it'll always be Delane, Sonny Styles. So in my mind, if you just kind of count guys down like best guy,
right,
Delane would be in the 12s for me. But for Daniel having them up here, I'm like, okay, so I wonder if that's Daniel saying, okay, well, the Giants don't need pass rushers, but they do need defensive help, so they're going to add corner here.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. They do. But I just would have thought that they would have went wide receiver, but they didn't. But we're going to keep on watching this board. But Delane going 5th, that's shocked me.
So if that were to actually happen, though, you would kind of say, listen, yeah, all draft season long, I've been talking skill wide receiver here. But as we've watched the Giants play, we talk about a defense that gives up really a good front 7, but at the cornerback spot, you know, they have clearly missed on some players back there.
Brian, would you think that maybe this is a time where the Giants maybe overcompensate for the offensive line deficiencies and maybe like look for another guy to kind of go this high? We all know that tackles kind of get overdrafted sometimes.
Yeah.
Is there a third tackle that'll surprise you? Because it happens every year. I didn't think J.C. Latham was going to be like a top 10 guy, but he ended up going top 10 just because of the premium on tackle. Is there another tackle that we have, Brian? Maybe Proctor? Maybe Freeling or something. You know, Freeling was kind of high on one of Brugler's mocks or whatever, right, Brian?
Yeah.
Like, is there another tackle that could like surprise us and end up in this top 5 or so, top 10?
Are you saying other than the guys that we have, other than
Malinoa and Fano?
Yeah.
The Giants right here needing like a tackle help, right? Do you think that?
Yeah, the Giants though. Think about the Giants and the way they've drafted with some of the mammoth tackles and guards and stuff that they've taken. You know, they have really. It's not for the lack of trying. I mean, they've spent resources, and you know, John Michael Smith, Minnesota center, 2nd round pick. I mean, they've tried to. Will Hernandez, they've tried. UTEP, they've tried to kind of put this offensive line together through the draft and through free agency, and it just has not worked at all. So they have to be a little bit nervous about that. And really, what's their evaluation? They would. I remember interviewing late in the year Bob Papa, who is the Giants' voice, radio voice, and Bob Papa's like, "Could we please borrow Will McClay for our offensive line drafting?" You know, I mean, that's just the kind of the way they think right now. They have had such a bad run at it. Boy, if they were to reach at that point and take somebody that might not be, but could they take Proctor? I mean, that is a 366-pound man that is a big-time power player.
Yeah.
But would they worry about, they've had these drafts before where they've taken these mammoth guys and it just hasn't worked out for them all that well. So I have some doubts that if the script were to fall like Daniel Jeremiah is talking about here, I don't know if the Giants would draft an offensive tackle. I just really don't know that at all. I don't think they would. All right, next going down the board, Cleveland at 6 is going to take David Bailey. Yeah, imagine David Bailey, being paired with Myles Garrett. You know, I mean, that to me, if Jim Swartz becomes the head coach there, yeah, I can see a defensive coach pushing that way. But man, I tell you what, it's a situation where it's kind of the rich get richer when it comes to rushing the passer right there with Myles Garrett. Here's kind of another one of those curveballs when you get to the Commanders at 7. is Sonny Styles, the outside linebacker for Ohio State, gets taken. And Daniel Jeremiah makes the point here. He says, Styles reminds me of Fred Warner, who was drafted by the 49ers when current Commanders GM Adam Peters was an executive in San Francisco. Keep in mind that Bobby Wagner is 35 and heading for free agency. Not surprised with the pick, because I think the player was always going to be that kind of guy potentially. I think that people probably, I know personally I don't have him in my top 15, but I can see people, I could be completely wrong about him. I could have him at 16, 17, but I could see where people probably are thinking more about him as an overall linebacker, his ability to cover, his ability to tackle, the ability to play downhill. Sonny Styles makes a lot of sense. I just didn't expect to see him, I should say, at the Commanders at number 7.
Yeah, Brian, I got a 2 on him, and Styles maybe like a higher 2 that still gets drafted in the first round or something. So I was thinking like 14, 15, 16.
Yeah, he's in the stack just behind. If you had 15 guys in the first round, he's probably players 16, 17, or 18 on your board.
Yeah, so I ain't gonna lie, man. Washington taking him number 7. That's kind of high. That's higher than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. But maybe Jeremiah's heard something and he's, you know what I mean? And that's just kind of how he's doing it right now. It's interesting, but we'll keep on watching. But if you're a Cowboy fan, Brian, and this is how it plays out,
it's starting you're starting to get a little worried now about what's going on. So you lost a corner, you've lost the linebacker that you've kind of thought that might be there at 12. Those offensive tackles, maybe if you wanted one of them, they're now off the board. So you're kind of looking at this like, well, wait a minute, are we about to see something that we didn't want to see? Maybe they prepare for this, but we go down to the Saints take Jeremiah Love. I think Jeremiah Love was, to me, always going to be if you were wiped out, Jeremiah Love at 12 wouldn't be a bad pick. If you lost all your defensive players. But he goes to the Saints at 8. Kansas City now takes Ruben Bain from Miami, the edge rusher. So it's going to be interesting to see if, in fact, Kansas City has been a team that's we've kind of seen safeties here and downs and people like that. But here's Ruben Bain going at 9. That's another concern for the Cowboys if you're looking for your edge rusher. Bailey and now Bain off the board, those are probably your 2 best pass rushers, or the 2 guys you had highest on your board are now off that board. So that would have to be a concern. You get down to 10. Here's where Cincinnati takes a corner. They take McCoy from Tennessee, Jermon McCoy from Tennessee, who did not play at all in 2025. You got to go back and watch the 2024 tape. Starting to hear whispers and stuff that he's working out with a trainer, and I'm not talking about a trainer rehabbing. I'm talking about a guy getting ready for some workouts and stuff like that. So we might not have to worry about him. The process of him going to workouts and pro days and things like that might be good for us to be able to say, okay, the knee looks fine, everything's cool, he's working out, he'll be ready to play for camp. Any surprises there as we get to 10?
No surprises there, Brian. It's just knowing how this plays out, and we can do this after the mock, Brian. I want to go back to this top 12 and find what teams could go receiver there.
Right.
Because there are no wide receivers that went in the top 12.
Right.
And you're kind of hoping that that's where your help comes from to bump these guys down the board. The more receivers go top 12, the more chance you get for a defender. So after we done with all this, I would love to just go back and see but Bain at Kansas City, that hurts me, Brian, because I was hoping Kansas City would go wide receiver because they kind of been needing wide receiver, but they go Ruben Bain. And look, if they do go wide receiver, you're at pick 12 with Bain and Jermon McCoy and Caleb Downs on the board. Yeah. So if one receiver goes, you either get Bain or you get McCoy or you get Downs.
Right.
I'll take either one of those guys, but instead,
here we are.
what's about to happen? To you. So
I'm about to crush your soul. Here is about what I'm about to do. At 11, Daniel Jeremiah has Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State, going at pick 11. Downs, they say, as we all know, has the versatility to play multiple spots. His teammate, Mika Fitzpatrick, same type of guy. The football intelligence, the leadership with this guy is unbelievable. the Daniel Jeremiah is saying that Miami has a chance to improve a defense that ranked 24th in scoring and 32nd in opponents' completion percentage. So that to me makes a pretty solid argument for drafting a guy much like Caleb Downs. But here the Cowboys are on the clock, and Daniel Jeremiah has him taking Colton Hood. And I ask you now, as you look at with what you've seen come off the board, do you have another player in mind that you would rather have than Colton Hood, or is that going to be a good pick for you?
Brian, if it's me, I would rather have, in no order in particular, Jordan Tyson is my number one wide receiver on my board.
Right.
From Arizona State.
Right.
I would have rather gone there than Colton Hood. If I got to take a corner, I would rather take Brandon Cisse over Colton Hood. But I think Cisse goes a little bit later. Besides that, I mean, you really kind of run out of those guaranteed guys at 11.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
like
absolutely.
You run out of those guys. And I'm not mentioning wide receiver just because of like Cowboy need or whatever, but if no wide receiver goes, then by the time you get to 12, you're going to be reaching for a guy. You're going to be in second round player territory. So if it's me, I would just rather go with the receiver than to take a second round corner, in my opinion. And Hood is my first corner that I have.
I'm the same way. Let me ask you a real quick question here, and then we'll run down to 20 where we're at. You mentioned something. If you knew you were going to get this scenario, you and I talked about this pre-show. If you knew you were going to get this scenario, would you consider taking the 12th overall pick and sending it for Maxx Crosby?
So I've been putting this out on socials, and I think it's an interesting experiment to just look how people reacted to it. I think people are too caught up on the 12th overall pick.
Sure.
The idea that it's the 12th overall pick. I think people too caught up on that. Because when I was like, man, I'll trade this pick to go get Maxx right now.
Right.
They were saying, no, Voch, maybe you can send 20.
Yeah.
Or maybe you can send 20 and like a third next year or something, but don't send the 12. I think people are caught up in the 12th overall pick because of the idea of what the 12th overall pick normally is, but every draft is different. You're not getting Micah Parsons in this situation right here. You're not getting Parsons. You're not getting Booker. You're not getting Rashawn Slater. None of them dudes that normally pop out at 12th overall. So if it's me, if Will McClay is in one ear saying, "Hey man, we could draft you Colton Hood, at 12," but in the other ear, Jerry say, "I feel like getting aggressive, I could just send this 12, to Vegas, and we get Maxx, I'm sending 12 to Vegas to get Maxx, because look, at 12th overall, if we're a different team, we love this draft,
right."
If we're the Vegas Raiders drafting at 12, and this the draft you get, you get, oh man, I get to add a number one receiver and Jordan Tyson go play with Brock Bowers for my young quarterback whenever for Mendoza, my young quarterback.
Right.
If I'm Vegas, that's how I'm thinking. Right.
Yeah.
If you the Cowboys with the 12th overall pick and all the damn defensive players is gone, well, damn. The best player here is a wide receiver or a defensive player that I can probably get at 20. If you one of them teams that like Peter Woods, the Cowboys got too many defensive tackles that we can use.
Okay,
the Raiders could use Peter Woods.
You
understand what I'm saying?
The Raiders could use anything. They could use another pick, but I mean, maybe they don't want to get rid of it. But I like what you're saying here. If I knew this situation was probably going to happen, and I think the point you make about that we've all kind of fallen in love with the 12th overall pick, I think the 12th overall pick might have the most value for you for maybe moving it, if that's the case. If all of a sudden you're getting down and you're telling me it's Colton Hood, and no disrespect to Colton Hood,
take him at 20 and I wouldn't say nothing to you.
I would not
take Colton Hood at 20 and I
wouldn't say a word to you. I wouldn't say a word to you. So, all right, let's finish this up real quick. Bakai Lemon goes, who we both like from USC, goes to the Rams. This is a pick they got through Atlanta, 13th pick. You've
Brian,
got, yes, sir.
Why would you say that Jeremiah puts Lemon as his first receiver off the board? Is that a Rams thing or is that a him thing?
He says here the Rams value tough, rugged receivers who also are playmakers. It would almost be unfair to add Lemon to the offense that already includes Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. So he's basing it on the fact that Les Snead loves offensive weapons, is what he's basing it on right there. And Lemon would be, man, in that offense, holy jeez.
Yeah.
God. Okay, you got Vega Owanye goes to Baltimore at 14, the guard from Penn State.
That's a little rich for you, Brian?
That's a little rich for me right there. But you know what? He's saying that the Ravens need an upgraded guard, and center Tyler Lindenbaum is due to reach free agency in March. And so Owanye has a strong case to be considered the best lineman in this year's draft, is what Daniel's saying. So interesting thought there. At 15, Cassius Howell, Texas A&M, goes to Tampa Bay. At 16, Carnell Tate, who everybody's kind of talked about as the potential. If you see a lot of these mock drafts, everybody's got Carnell Tate going in the top 10. But, now we're starting to see these receivers fall off the board. I've kind of, the way that he's done it, though, I think is pretty interesting with Lemon being Lemon. He's probably got it Lemon, Tate, and then we'll see with Tyson where he ends up picking him. Here's one that might get you at 17, Voch. Mesidor, the edge from the University of Miami, Akeem Mesidor, goes to the Detroit Lions at 17. This would be paired with Aiden Hutchinson. Holy geez, would that be kind of a pass rush crew right there for the Lions. Here's an interesting one. Emmanuel McNeil Warren, the safety from Toledo, goes to the Minnesota Vikings at 18. He says, I'm higher on McNeil Warren than some other people around the league, but I love his combination of size, explosive playmaking ability. He could help replace Harrison Smith if the soon-to-be 37-year-old decides to indeed retire. So he's got Emmanuel McNeil Warren going to 18. But that's probably where, we're looking at that point where we're running out of first-round grades, and now we're starting to see the guys with second-round grades make some appearances here. Carolina takes our guy Jordan Tyson at 19, and the Cowboys at 20 take Keldrick Faulk, the edge defensive end from Auburn. He says Faulk is tough to evaluate. Boy, I'd agree on that. He's got great size and is a smooth athlete, but I'd like to see him play with a little bit more urgency, stuff you and I have talked about quite a bit. The upside is tremendous. So
if it's a tough evaluation, don't give him to me at 20. Give me somebody you feel good about.
You're kind of, this draft, you're kind of really are feeling like that maybe there's guys that you have been talking about, hopeful. Yeah. He's kind of giving you basically second round players on your stack. Am I right about that? Below the 15, he's giving you guys probably maybe in the 20 range when it comes to these players for both your picks at 12 and 20.
You ain't wrong, and this is why we can't value these picks like we value picks every other year.
Yeah, I see what you're doing.
Every other year, the 20th overall pick, get Jackson and Jigba or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can get Quinyon Mitchell with a damn 20th overall pick in past drafts, but Brian, this ain't that draft, man.
It ain't that.
I knew when you started running out of pass rushers.
Yeah.
When Cassius went 15, Mesidor went 17. It was kind of going in this direction for you. There's even people that ask me this, Brian. They say, and this is something that you've put into the world or whatever, right? But with the new odd man front that we're likely going to be playing, would you? Would that be a reason why you would add Keldrick Faulk? And my answer is no.
Yeah.
My answer is no. Because I think you have Keldrick Faulk at home. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
If you're going to be going for a new defense, don't tell me about the down guys. Tell me about the outside rushes, because
that's where Howell comes in, because we've seen Howell from Texas A&M stand up and play rush. We've seen that. So, I mean, to me, he seems like I would much rather have Howell than I would Faulk, but in this mock draft, we don't get that opportunity.
If you're looking for somebody to play the 5 tech in your defense, Osa, Perrion, and Solomon Thomas eat that up for breakfast. That's what they real good at. You know, if you're gonna have somebody in B gap, that'll be Kenny Clark, Osa. Sometimes you're looking for your A gap player, Quinnen Williams. You're looking for your zero guy. Sometimes Quinnen, Jay Toia. Your room is filled. With defensive tackles for your odd front or your even front. I think the defense is going to be multiple. I don't want people to get too caught up in that. But if you say Voch, can you add Keldrick Faulk to that mix? I don't want Keldrick Faulk being like a stand-up rush guy. I feel like that's what I need.
No, I
need
agree.
Standing rushing guy.
I totally agree with you on that. I think Faulk. I think Faulk is a good player, but Daniel Jeremiah, I think, paints a picture that every scout in the National Football League, the ones that I've talked to that have gone through to Auburn, this is a really tough evaluation. Are you getting the 2025 player? Or are you getting the 2024 player? That's the evaluation that you have to ask yourself.
Brian, is Melo Height the pass rusher from Texas Tech? Is he too rich for you right here at 20?
I think that would be. I think when you look down at it, I would prefer him over. Of Faulk, because I have it on my stack, Bane Bailey first, and then Mesidor Howe Height, and then I have Mason Thomas from Oklahoma, then Parker Faulk. So I've got Parker Faulk down probably in that 128, 129 range, and those other guys more like the 121s, 122s up at the top of my board.
Yeah, I agree, Brian. I agree. You can go ahead and wrap up the rest of this mock if you want to, man.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll just stop at that. I think I've kind of destroyed your will to compete a little bit, haven't I?
So you walked out of this thing.
I did.
You walked out of this thing with Colton Hood and Keldrick Faulk.
And I tell you what, if you knew this, your argument for using 12 to go get somebody like Crosby makes absolutely sense. If you want to argue why to go get a guy, that mock draft right there should open your eyes to like, well, there's a possibility. Now, what if it happens this way? I think Daniel Jeremiah is really good at this stuff. I'll be interested to see how this draft season plays out. And by the way, we're just getting started. We've got a couple more months. We've got All-Star games and then the Combine coming up. But it's surely an exciting time. But also one of these times where if you see this mock draft come down the pike, you're probably going, whoa, what just happened? What just happened here? And I think Daniel Jeremiah is really, really good at this stuff.
We need Tyson Tate and Lemon to have some really good off seasons. Bro.
Yeah, we need.
One more thing, Brian. Let me ask you this.
Sure.
Let me ask you this: is 12 too high to take Cassius Howard right here for you?
I would say yes. But the problem now, listen, they might love him more. Maybe he turns into like an A&M player like Cooper. You know, what we saw with the Denver Broncos and stuff. I mean, he was a late, like a 7th round pick kind of guy. Yeah. But here, the one thing that Howell does, and if they do play that odd man front and they need a stand-up guy, I mentioned it earlier, you could actually watch his tape with explosiveness off the edge from a 2-point stance. So to me, I'm kind of like, wait a minute, I have vision. I see the player doing what I might want to do. Donovan Ezerako could be that stand. We saw him at Boston College be that stand-up kind of guy, But maybe if you go out and you get Howell as that stand-up guy, that playing off the edge that way, that being too rich you might not have a choice. That might be, if that's your type of guy, they might like him better. And that we can say this for about all these picks. They might like this guy better than what you and I have, where we have him. I don't think we have him too low. I think we've got him in the 1-2-2, 1-2-3 range, top of that group. At least we don't have him buried down there like with Faulk and Parker and those guys.
I need some people to have a phenomenal Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
So that they can kind of jump in that top 11 for us.
Combine, get everybody go. Great interviews, great.
Got that run fast. Run a 4.13 or something.
Yeah, there you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate y'all tapping in with us on this remote edition of the Doing All Right. We're gonna get back to our draft work tomorrow. I'll probably be in the studio if I can drive over some of that ice I got over here outside.
At least we know we could do this, man. I missed you. I'm so glad to hear the Dom DeMarco bell today. I mean, everything.
You said what?
Dom DeMarco.
It makes my heart feel good when you do that. I'm waiting for the Phil Collins picture to make an appearance here in the studio myself. So I see you looking around, but but hey, congratulations too on that hardware you got sitting on your desk there. You know that with the 100,000 there. Congratulations.
We're gonna have one of these that say Crown Globe Media.
There you go.
Don't worry about it.
Well,
it's coming.
Appreciate everybody doing that. That'd be nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow is the 28th. So y'all write this down. We got some homework for you for the Wednesday edition of the Doing All Right. We're still doing Senior Bowl stuff. Defensive lineman Dominic Orange, okay, from Iowa State.
Yep.
Cornerback Julian Neal from Arkansas.
Yes, sir.
Running back Nicholas Singleton from Penn State.
Yes, sir.
And cornerback Keith Abney from Arizona State. We'll be breaking those 4 players down tomorrow on the Doing All Right, whether I'm in studio or whether I'm here. We're still going to be giving you that good work. So appreciate y'all for tapping in. Go to the website, crownglobemedia.com, to pick up anything. You see the little tumbler that Brian got on the desk right there. You can go over there, get you one of them, get you some outerwear, some cold wear since it's freezing out there with any logo from any of the shows you like. Tap in with us there. You can tap in on the website. Everything's on the website. The audio is there and the link to our socials. Now, Brian's still running Crown Globe Media from Twitter because the people that was supposed to get his Twitter back, they told I got a word yesterday. They're still waiting on some things, but it's in the process. So I'm very, very hopeful. Thoughts and prayers, folks, if you can give me those, please. I need my Twitter back for sure. Okay, they lying to Brian, but we're gonna try until he make the announcement. Still follow Brian on Crown Globe Media on socials. And I'm Voch Lombardi. We appreciate y'all. We'll tap in with you tomorrow, break down some players, and we'll be right back on it. We love y'all. Crown.